All right, here we are. This one's probably going to be a bit short, but maybe not. Maybe I'll end up overgoing things for all I know. But anyways, so oil did follow everything that's going on, just not following it enough, not going as high as it should. Ended up hitting 92, but despite the fact that things only got worse even over the course of today, it still pulled back from 92 down to about $90. So I don't know what the market is thinking in its head, but it is uh, even if this even is human beings doing this anymore, then this is ironically, like the title, an example kind of sunk cost fallacy because they gambled so much off of Trump's tweets and the supposed peace deal and everything on everything going back to normal. And they really don't want it to shift outside of that paradigm because that's how innate human narcissism works. But, anyways, so it all continues onward from Tuesday when we were on here last. Are we back to normal? We are. Okay. That the loading or countdown screen is, let me go to it. More official. That is scene artwork that was done by Anya in Belarus, who's the project's artist. One of the primary characters, and him just at the what would be literally the final scene of the first episode, with the billowing coal smoke coming out of the World War One era cruisers. What are they called? They're not called smokestacks. Funnel to emotionally tone match as after picking up the refugees out of the wreckage in the water, they are running the equivalent of the Strait of Gibraltar at flank speed to try to avoid any potential interceptions by another discount fictional Spain naval vessel, since they just sunk one, as said vessel was firing on a refugee ship slash escaped forced laborers ship from Spain that was fleeing back to this world's version of Morocco. And so uh, they are trying they are trying to get out just in case said ship did manage to actually get like a telegraph signal off to any other Spanish ships that might be in the area. But uh, that wasn't specifically made for streaming. That's a scene from my actual indie project stuff. But anyways, on to and not cooperating with Epic Pen again. Let's fix that. Set that up. Set that up. Get back over here. So the U.S. continued bombing various sites across Iran over the last few days, including starting to hit with penetrator bombs at several underground missile storage tunnels or storage sites again, and having struck that refinery in southwestern Iran, like we spoke of last time. Iran primarily continued firing retaliatory strikes on Kuwait and Bahrain. And again, most of the ones on Bahrain are going to empty buildings as we've effectively abandoned the naval base there at this point. But the ones in Kuwait are hitting occasionally an active US base, but also have been hitting random nodes of the Kuwaiti power grid. and repeatedly striking one of Kuwait's desalination plants. The US and Iran have both fired on and disabled the engine rooms of a number of oil tankers in each other's blockades that were attempting to go through. So, Strait of Hormuz itself remains completely shut. Meanwhile, for Saudi traffic specifically, at least, the Bab al Mandeb Strait is shut, and Saudi Arabia actually did try to send two tankers through it earlier, both of which were struck and disabled by Houthi Shahid drones. So, Saudi Arabia, as discussed last time, now has to, since they already had to reroute as much as they could through the Red Sea, but that only ending up at the current capacity of 5 million barrels per day of exports versus their normal 7 to 8. Now everything they send has to go out through Suez and then out and around Africa or over through the Panama Canal. And with the traffic that already goes through Suez, uh, putting the additional tanker traffic from Saudi Arabia onto the Suez Canal, the Suez is only able to handle about 60% of Saudi Arabia's newly surged Red Sea traffic. So Saudi Arabia's exports, unless things change, are now going to be down to only 3 million barrels per day because that's the most the Suez can handle unless they negotiate with other different shipping firms around the world to divert things themselves around Africa, which Saudi Arabia will probably just pay them to do to uh, free up transit time slots through the canal, so that they can then actually manage to get the whole 5 million barrels per day out. But they're probably in such financial and bribery negotiations with global shipping industries behind the scenes at this very moment, but nothing's been announced as of yet. And Saudi Arabia was basically going to get nukes. So Trump did a big presentation and speech about how the U.S. was going to support a peaceful, draw some quotation marks there, a peaceful Saudi nuclear program, which effectively just meant we were going to give them nukes. So that was going to happen as, I guess, a excuse for counterbalancing the inevitable Iranian nukes, so that he could present that as an excuse to finally just dipping out of the whole thing. But everybody around him, Israel, the rest of the Gulf nations, uh, U.S. military officials themselves all said that's a very bad idea. So then at the last minute, he reneged on it and said, actually, no, we're not going to do it. But it was a pretty crazy, wacky moment thing to see just suddenly come out of the blue like that, even if it has now also suddenly disappeared out of the blue. Although it might not have. Maybe we secretly are just handing them nukes behind closed doors now, for all I know. The conflicts, the ground combat that erupted between the IDF and the actual Lebanese army seems to have been a one-time incident. So the IDF has withdrawn to the area they said they would, and the Lebanese army has moved in to, as part of the agreement, fight Hezbollah themselves instead of the IDF doing it. So that was apparently a one-time incident where those some units in those two ended up firing on each other. Nothing has happened between them since, for the moment at least. But we'll see how that continues to go, if anything else ends up coming out of that at some point. Oh, and as revenge basically for striking their desalination plants. Kuwait has now also been conducting their own airstrikes on Iran. Not really that high of a percentage of the total stuff being dropped on them, obviously, but they have done some bit since Iran moved on from just striking the U.S. Air Force Base in Kuwait, and actually started striking Kuwaiti infrastructure. All right, did we get? There we go. Oh, look, it's Josh. We got Josh. And saying, oh, look, it's Josh, usually on the streaming microphone would peak the audio, which is one of the many things I was having problems with, but the microphone's 12 years old, so it's basically just dead. Which is why I ordered the new one that Josh recommended. But I ordered on Monday, and as of today, Friday, it is still sitting on ordered on Amazon's tracker. It has not said that it's shipped yet it is still listed as arriving on Sunday. So I don't know what's going on. They haven't even charged my card for it yet. So I'm really hoping it's just a processing issue and it really is going to show up on Sunday, or else I'm going to have some problems and I'm not going to be able to at least resume talking on the Twitch streams until it gets here. So I'm probably still going to end up doing Dark Souls 2 on Twitch tomorrow night, but it's going to be Silent Souls, basically. I'm going to just not be talking because I'm not going to have the microphone hooked up, since I obviously don't have the new one until it gets here, and I'm not going to make anyone suffer through listening to Shut Up Twitch, to what my audio sounds like on the one that I currently still have. Like, it had gotten so bad by the time I did that Ratchet and Clank stream that that microphone is dead. I already ordered it. It's just still sitting on ordered. It has not. I haven't received any notice that it's shipped, and the charge hasn't even shown up on my card for it. I messaged them on their on Fifine's customer service thing, and supposedly they'll respond within 24 hours, and they can take a look and see if it's even left yet. But I'll see. I think I've had that happen to me once when I ordered something from Amazon. I think it was a shipment of British Port chocolate that there was no update on it whatsoever. And then it just showed up at the door on the expected date, and all the chip, it's at this location, it's moving to this location, all that stuff suddenly showed up on the update thing like an hour after it arrived. So I'm hoping that's what's going to be the case with the microphone, but I'm not positive. No, they are nowhere near overblown because the U.S. is not the only country on the face of the earth. Uh, our uh, our supply is basically accounted for. We're flooding markets to try to uh, price suppression and supplement some of the gaps as much as we can. What demand destruction didn't supplement already. Plus, demand was starting to come on its way back up. Like, for example, China went from 13 back up to 16 million barrels per day over the last month and a half, right up until all of this started again. We went from 19 back up to 21 million barrels per day of demand. Everybody's been going back up to normal. Germany went from 1.7 back up to 2. Uh, India is actually still down a little bit. They're one of the ones who's been slower. Plus, all the Middle East stuff is not even the only things that are going on. Remember, there's also the ongoing collapse of Russian oil and gas infrastructure because of all Ukrainian drone strikes, which we're about to move up into over here. And the amount in private holdings in the U.S. is more around 400 million, not 600. 600 was a long time ago in better days when we were a bit smarter. But you guys know from past streams about the various the various ground freights, logistics hubs, freights, distribution centers that have been getting hit across Russia. Two massive ones near Moscow that accounted for about 10% of their total capacity. Then one near Saratov. Well, one got hit down in Krasnodar a few days ago. You scroll down to that one. Where's the Krasnodar one? This is. Oh, no. That's the Stavropol one, which was yet another one. So they got Stavropol too. There's the Krasnodar one. So they hit the massive regional ground freight distribution and storage center in Krasnodar. And also this morning, they took, they hit the one of the two primary ones, just like Moscow, St. Petersburg has two big ones. They hit one of the two big ones outside of St. Petersburg. So it keeps going and going, downward spiral, along with the fact that we now have around 200 disabled commercial shipping vessels, from container ships to oil tankers to bulk carriers to the tugboats that assist them across the Azov and Black Sea. And also the last remaining transformers and power substations across Crimea are now being hit, along with the one major ground freight hub in Crimea, which they were constantly, for the peninsula, pulling a lot of stuff out of for to supplement the loss of inbound shipments, since it's gotten really difficult to get stuff to Crimea because anyone going along the southern road there, those supply trucks get hit. Russia really doesn't want to send them along the bridge because they don't want Ukraine to hit the bridge. And the ferries and little shipment vessels that would carry trucks or sometimes just stuff itself over to Crimea, those have been taken out. And meanwhile, also, down along the actual front, for some reason, Russia decided to, despite the fact that these have become basically impossible to really function, Russia decided to try massive, like, armored column charges towards the front line again, but the result was the same. You know, the same as the reason why they originally stopped them. They all just got wiped out by suicide drones. So I don't know. The ground commanders had stopped this like for the last year or so because some of them apparently do have IQs above zero. So my only guess is that they got sub-zero IQ orders from Moscow, like top-down orders that they're not allowed to refuse. And so they had to just resort to that, and it accomplished nothing because, of course, it did. And one of the other new things hit was over around here. Russia's Uh, really, only a combat aircraft ejection seat manufacturer. You draw all the packaging and stuff, things there, and the little rocket nozzle. They're the factory that manufactures the ejection seats for their combat aircraft was taken out this morning by Flamingo cruise missiles. Ironically, just a day after one of their newly beloved Su-57s crashed in Moscow. The pilot survived because he was able to eject, but now their ability to manufacture ejection seats for their combat aircraft has now been removed. So hope they should hope the ejections, whatever ejection seats are already installed on current aircraft, will work properly. But they're not going to be able to install them on newly manufactured aircraft until that factory is rebuilt. So that's another thing. And also, over here in uh, along near the border of Tatarstan and Bashkortostan, another oil pipeline network pumping station was hit this morning as well. So Ukraine is, as I suspected, after taking out so many refineries, they are moving on to starting to strike the actual pipeline and oil movement distribution infrastructure. And I would suspect soon, after taking out so much of the Black Sea and Azov Sea commercial vessel capacity, they're probably going to start sending longer range drones to start hitting Russia's commercial stuff in the Caspian Sea or up near and around the port of St. Petersburg. And Russia has also publicly admitted to some more military power downsizing on their end, as they have the Ministry of Defense admitted now that they're effectively, because of technological issues and newly a new environment of budgetary constraints that was not previously seen, or however they decided to phrase it. They are no longer going to be making. They're no longer going to be making new regular military submarines. They're only potentially going to continue manufacturing new future uh, nuclear uh, nuclear missile subs if it is just and they with the usual corpo politico phrasing of if in the future it is decided that such a thing might be necessary to do, which effectively means they're also going to stall that program for as long as they can because of the many constraints that they're now finding themselves under. So, with different consequences and for different reasons, the US and Russia are both spiraling further and further into their own individual sunk cost fallacies. And then some other stuff happening elsewhere that I did mention last time. Other people who were previously only jokingly called dictators are now going for dictator moves, like Modi over in India. There's more than just two political parties in India, that they are a parliamentary system, but there are two that are bigger than the others primarily. Similar to like basically the same case as it works in Britain, kind of, where there's sort of two main ones that compose like 60% of the electorate, and then there's like another five parties that compose the other 40%. So his primary political opponent, who he was afraid potentially might win the next election, he just had the dude arrested on charges of treason over the this past weekend, and so that's erupted into protests in the millions, predominantly being fueled by younger people. And he's now starting to violently crack down on those. So he's going for his power consolidation move. Al Zaidi in Iraq, we mentioned before, has uh, had the military itself directly arrest large numbers of his political opposition. So he's going for power consolidation. He's going to be the new Saddam, just a U.S. aligned Saddam this time instead of a non-U.S. aligned Saddam, basically. So everybody is starting to go for hyper power consolidation. And Israel has elections coming up, and I would be really surprised if Netanyahu does not just declare that they have to postpone them, as he has done before a few times, because the country is in a state of emergency because of his own desire to keep this perpetually going, since they've effectively doused Gaza. So the original October 7 Hamas stuff is now no longer a like truly legitimate reason to keep the state of emergency imposed, which is why, like I've said many times before, he's kept going and pushing into different places and doing different things, even stuff down in Yemen occasionally every few months, because he has to keep the state of emergency going so that he can avoid prosecution and maybe even use it for election cancellation, which is the main thing people think Trump is going to do. And I don't know, maybe he'll try, but probably not. And even if so, he'll end up chickening out of it because he's a tremendous coward, as has been proven multiple times. People mistake all of this as like him not being a coward, but this isn't cowardice versus bravery. This is about narcissism. This is about, again, as the stream is titled, sunk cost fallacy. Here's here's my water. Uh, the thing with the potential Putin coup stuff is there's better people that have more quote unquote political climate insight that you can listen to, like Vlad Vexler or something. But there's not a lot of people in the upper tier of Russia's administration, not anymore at least, who actually would be bold enough to do something to or against Putin like that. Like there are people who would, but they really probably wouldn't do so unless they knew for sure there were enough other people who would be on board with it, which he's kind of purged things enough to the point of where there's not enough people for them to be fully confident in it. So it is a lot more likely that even those who are ready to get rid of him, who are eagerly waiting for him to go, are waiting for one, the inevitable for him to just die of old age. As I spoke about this in the previous stream, uh, barring a few barring a few exceptions to the rule, like Gorbachev, who lived to be like 100 or whatever, and the Tsar, who was shot, so he doesn't count. Russia's political leaders have really, really consistently, and I mean really consistently, died in their mid 70s. Like you find this one died at 76, that one died at 74, 73, that one died at 75, this one also died at 76, and Putin's about to turn 74. So there's a fairer chance that most of them are probably just waiting for the inevitable or as they see it, or they're just going to also, if he doesn't die, die, or if Ukraine continues to speed up this whole internal economic unraveling process, they might be waiting for an actual internal economic buckling to pass like a specific threshold to where they really feel like they could get away with it, to where those who wouldn't immediately be on board with it are persuaded enough to be on board with it by like the sheer amount of endured national damage. But I mean, if someone randomly like tried, they could get pretty far. That was kind of seen previously with the whole Prigozhin attempt, since he kind of just rolled his way like 1,000 miles north, uh, up along the highways, and like there's no real military attempt to stop him. Like a few helicopters occasionally came and like shot at some of his tanks and stuff, and said helicopters then got shot down. So it's an interesting dichotomy in that sense that it actually wouldn't be as tactically difficult as you might assume, but there's not a lot of people left because Putin got rid of them, obviously, who are in the mentality of being willing to actually take the risk to do so. Lukashenko has semi secretly, not secretly, communicated with us a number of times, both subtly and semi directly, that he is willing to let Belarus go. Like he'll feign generosity. Obviously, he'll make some like speech about how he's listening to the will of the Belarusian people. The moment Putin is gone and he no longer has a gun to his head, he's 99% he's going to willingly step down or abdicate, quote unquote, and he's arranged a like penthouse at one of those luxury skyscrapers in Dubai that he wants to retire to. In reality, escape to and never be able to leave because then everybody's going to have warrants on him, and so there's going to be few places he can go safely step other than like Cuba or Thailand or something. But he's already picked his little I willingly give up retirement spot, but he can't leave. Uh, he has no actual ability to leave and do such a thing as long as Putin himself is still alive, though. Let's see. Was there anything else? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that was mostly it. Mostly it for this one, at least. And I'll probably do a Sunday night one again this weekend since the pace of individual things that have continued happening seems to be maintaining itself. So unless somehow absolutely nothing happens between now and then, I'll probably be on Sunday again. And hopefully I'll have actually received the microphone. So I'll go check on the shipment status of again after this, just not on stream, because those stupid AI things automatically like pre-open emails now, and we'll just like have uh previews of them shown up, including like actual personal and like financial information and stuff. So I don't want to accidentally flash that on screen. Not sure what you mean they'll bomb it when the market closes. We've been bombing Iran for 2 straight weeks, including during the weekdays and the weekend. Ever since Monday of last week was when we restarted. But there's nothing really more we can do. I mean, we can bomb enough stuff to eventually like relieve them of their ability to actually like strike ships and stuff. Like we can remove as much of their military capacity from existence as we want. But remember, this is for the government in Tehran. This is religious slash at least pseudo religious. This is there's no there's no amount of like national damage you could afflict them with that will convince them to like relinquish power, which is what we supposedly want them to do. And the only other thing we could do is wipe the government again, which again we already did in the first wave of stuff back in March, but a new government just formed that's now more radical than the previous one was. So we just kind of keep repeating that process, which is now why we're stuck in a spiraling sunk cost fallacy because we slash predominantly Trump uh, don't want to just leave unless we have something that looks like a quote unquote win because we don't we have too much, I don't know what the phrase is, sanctity of ego to be willing to take the L. Like it took us 10 years to take the L, be willing to publicly take the L in Vietnam. It took us 20 years to be willing to take the L in Afghanistan. This is a bit more intense than both of those and a bit more globally consequential. So I doubt we'll keep this going for 10 years before people who have uh, at least attempts at leashes on us start pulling at leashes on us in multiple directions, including us pulling a leash on ourselves. But uh, this is another incidence of I'm just going to use that phrase. I'm going to use that phrase, sanctity of ego above all else, where acceptance that you failed is not something that's normally humanly acceptable to not just narcissists, but even just the average generic person. Uh, I do feel like I do have a feeling there's like something else somewhere that I'm forgetting about, but I can't really remember what it was off the top of my head. Just randomly cursoring over countries. I don't know, just seeing if anything suddenly jumps into my mind looking at them. So we're not getting anything, but more than just the generic cautionary. I don't want to forget something. I do actually think like there was something I specifically had on the list that I'm forgetting about, but I also don't have the list next to me because I'm extremely incompetent and did not carry it over here. All right, whatever it is, it'll we'll just have to deal with it. So that's going to be where this ends. I'll probably be on Twitch tomorrow. We'll be silent since don't have the new mic yet and the current one sucks. These streams I do from the laptop, the YouTube ones, so this isn't using the actual streaming mic stuff. But hopefully that mic I ordered actually shows up on Sunday like it's supposed to. Uh, Otherwise, I have no idea what's going on with them. I'm about to go check that shipping status now. So unless anything else shows up, then I'll be out. I'll wait a few seconds. I think the stream delay I measured was about 20 seconds.